The billionaire stood motionless outside the neonatal ward, the reflection in the glass barely resembling the man who once ruled boardrooms without fear. Inside the room, beneath sterile lights and a maze of quiet machines, lay his newborn son, tiny, fragile, fighting for each breath as if the world itself had challenged him at the very beginning. Just 48 hours earlier, joy had filled this hallway. Now grief and terror walked beside him like silent shadows. His wife was gone. His dreams of a perfect family were gone. And the only piece left of his heart lay behind that glass. The doctor's voice still echoed in his mind, calm but heavy with urgency. Your son cannot survive on substitutes alone. He needs natural care, immediately. The words felt unreal. He had built skyscrapers, moved markets, bought private islands on impulse. But now he was being told that none of it meant anything if he couldn't find a woman willing to give what only a mother's body could offer. Somewhere in this city, the doctor said, there was a woman who had recently suffered an unbearable loss. She had the strength the baby needed, and the broken heart he somehow understood too well. Her name was Maya. She had lost her child 2 weeks earlier. When he finally agreed to meet her, he expected tears, resentment, maybe even anger toward fate. What he didn't expect was the strange familiarity that struck his chest the moment she walked into the room, quiet, pale, steady-eyed, carrying a pain so deep it had turned calm. Their eyes met for the first time in decades. And in that silent moment, destiny whispered a truth neither of them was ready to face yet. The woman standing before him was not just the one who could save his son. She was the girl he once loved before life tore them apart. Maya stood with her hands folded tightly in front of her, as if holding herself together took effort. The silence between them stretched, heavy with the weight of years neither dared to name. The billionaire searched her face for the girl he once knew, the one who laughed without fear, who believed love alone could change the world. What he found instead was a woman carved by loss, her strength quiet but unbreakable. When the nurse gently placed his son in her arms for the first time, something shifted in the air, as if the room itself paused to listen. The baby's cries softened almost instantly. His tiny fingers curled against Maya's skin, trusting her without question. She drew a steady breath, eyes glistening but steady, whispering soft words meant only for him. Watching from across the room, the billionaire felt his knees weaken. His fiercest battles had been fought with contracts and rivals, but nothing had prepared him for this moment, the sight of a woman who had lost everything offering comfort to his greatest hope. Hours passed unnoticed. As night fell, the steady rhythm of the baby's calm breathing became the only sound that mattered. When Maya finally looked up at him, her voice was firm yet gentle. "He's strong," she said. "Stronger than you think." The certainty in her words stirred something in him, a fragile belief he had buried under grief. Later, in the quiet of the hallway, he asked why she had agreed to help. Maya hesitated, then spoke softly. "When you lose something that precious, you either close your heart forever, or you let it save someone else." Her words struck deep. He realized she wasn't only helping his son survive, she was trying to keep her own heart alive. As the lights dimmed that night, a strange bond formed between them, woven from shared pain and silent courage. Neither knew what the coming days would demand, but both sensed this was only the beginning of something far greater than either had imagined. By the third night, exhaustion had softened the walls they both pretended still stood between them. The hospital corridor was quiet except for distant footsteps and the steady hum of machines. He sat on a narrow bench outside the room, jacket forgotten at his side, staring into nothing. When Maya emerged quietly, carrying a cup of water, he looked up as if pulled from a storm inside his mind. She offered it without a word, and their fingers brushed for a brief second, just enough to wake memories neither had dared touch. "I remember this place," she said after a moment, sitting beside him. "We used to walk past it when we skipped classes." He turned slowly. That memory wasn't supposed to exist anymore. He had buried it under years of success, ambition, and choices he never allowed himself to question. "You disappeared," he said quietly. "One day you were there, and then you weren't." Her eyes lowered. "I waited for you," she whispered. "But life didn't wait for either of us." Inside the room the baby stirred softly. The sound pulled them both to their feet at the same time. Together they watched him through the glass, two separate lives tied by one tiny heartbeat. "That child," Maya said, "he feels like a promise." The word struck him in a place he didn't know still existed. A promise? After everything he had lost, the idea felt impossible, and yet, standing beside her, it didn't feel completely out of reach. Later, as she prepared to return for the next feeding, she paused at the door. "Whatever happened between us," she said gently, This is not about the past. It's about him. He nodded, but his heart knew the truth was far more complicated. Fate hadn't brought her back for only one reason. And for the first time since his world fell apart, he felt that destiny was quietly rewriting both their lives. The turning point came without warning, wrapped in a quiet conversation meant for comfort but destined to uncover truth. The baby finally slept peacefully, his breathing steady for the first time since birth. The billionaire stood beside Maya at the window as dawn slowly painted pale gold across the sky. For a moment, the world outside seemed gentle again. Then she spoke in a voice so soft it almost broke. "I used to imagine what our child would look like," she said, not looking at him. "Back when we were young and dreaming without fear." His chest tightened. "Maya," he began, but she lifted her hand gently, not to stop him, only to steady herself. "I never told you why I left," she continued. "I was scared. Scared that your future was too big for my small hopes. And then when I lost my baby, I thought I had lost my last reason to stay strong." Her voice trembled, but she did not cry. Strength had long replaced tears. He finally saw it then, not just her pain but the depth of her courage. The woman standing beside him was no longer the girl he once loved. Yet she was everything that girl had ever hoped to become. In that quiet space between confession and forgiveness, something shifted inside him. The grief he carried did not vanish, but it softened around her presence. That same morning the doctors delivered the first real sign of hope. The baby's condition had begun to improve. The room filled with cautious smiles, restrained relief, and whispered gratitude. When Maya heard the news, she closed her eyes in silent relief, pressing her hand to her heart as if to thank life itself. He watched her with awe. She had given his son more than nourishment, she had given him a future. And in that moment he realized something frightening and beautiful at once. Fate had not only placed her back into his life to save his child, it had returned her to heal what both of them thought was lost forever. The storm arrived the night no one was prepared to be brave again. A sudden downturn in the baby's strength sent nurses moving with urgent precision, voices low but tense. The billionaire stood frozen at the edge of the room, every victory he had ever claimed reduced to dust in the face of one trembling heartbeat. Machines flickered with shifting numbers, and the space filled with an unbearable waiting. Maya felt it before anyone spoke, the subtle change in the baby's breathing, the way his tiny fingers tightened as if grasping for reassurance. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, steadying herself with a calm that surprised even her. She whispered to the baby with the softness of a promise, her voice a gentle rhythm against the rising fear in the room. "You're not alone," she murmured. "You're wanted. You're loved." The billionaire watched as the tension in the child's body slowly eased, as if those words had found their way into his fragile strength. It was the first time he truly understood that healing wasn't only carried through medicine. It traveled through presence, through faith, through a heart willing to give without limits. Later, in the quiet that followed, he found Maya alone by the window, the city lights reflecting in her tired eyes. "You saved him again," he said, his voice breaking. She shook her head gently. "We saved each other tonight." He realized then how deeply their lives had become intertwined, not by past memories alone, but by shared courage in the darkest moments. That night, for the first time since loss had entered his life, he whispered a silent promise to the sleeping child and the woman who stood beside him. No matter what tomorrow demanded, he would never face it without gratitude again. The miracle came quietly, not with alarms or urgent footsteps, but with a calm announcement spoken through gentle smiles. The baby was finally strong enough to leave the ward. When the doctor delivered the news, the billionaire felt his legs weaken, not from fear this time but from relief so overwhelming it felt unreal. For weeks, hope had lived inside him like a fragile glass flame. Now it burned steady and warm. Across the room, Maya pressed her hand to her mouth, joy and disbelief flooding her face at once. As preparations began for discharge, he found himself standing before her with words he had carried in silence for far too long. "I was proud once," he said quietly. "So proud I let the best part of my life walk away." Maya met his eyes, no anger in them, only truth. "We both ran," she answered softly. "But life has a strange way of bringing hearts back when they're ready." That afternoon he carried his son into the sunlight for the first time. The warmth brushed the baby's cheeks and the tiny child stirred, safe and alive. Maya stood beside him, tears shining freely now. In that moment healing didn't feel like forgetting, it felt like choosing to move forward without fear. He turned to her and held out his hand, not as a billionaire, not as a broken man, but simply as someone who believed again. After a breath that felt like a lifetime, she took it. Years later, people would speak of his success as if wealth had shaped his destiny. But he would always know the truth. His greatest victory began the day a broken woman chose to save a fragile life, and in doing so saved his heart too.